So what is the Billy Graham rule and how does it apply to pastors? Thank you for being here for the Rainer Report. Obviously, my name is Tom Rainer, and that's why it's called the Rainer Report. We try to share with you on a regular basis relevant issues that are just coming again and again and again to us at Church Answers, through the blog, through our podcasts, through multiple ways, social media, and we're in this continuous feedback loop so we get to share with you what we are hearing. Well, there is no doubt, unless you have been somewhere where you have had no communication for the last months, that you are very, very familiar with the Me Too movement, that you're familiar with how many pastors and other Christian leaders specifically, not to mention the media world and the political world and all that, have had their careers halted and in some cases ruined because of things that have happened in their past or even their recent past or even ongoing in the present. You can read all about the Me Too movement and you can see where many women are courageously coming forward and talking about things that they thought they had to suppress all of their lives, where they were abused sexually or where there was inappropriate situations that they were in their workplace or even in their church. Many years ago, I can't remember what year, I heard about the Billy Graham rule. And the Billy Graham rule is essentially, I'm going to do everything I can to prevent myself from being in a compromising position or place with someone of the opposite gender. This is not just male saying it about females, it's females saying it about males as well. I'm not going to be alone. I'm not going to travel with someone of the opposite gender. And it's been criticized roundly. It's been mocked as something that is archaic. What do you mean? A man and a woman who are not married or who may be married to someone else, but they're traveling alone together. What's wrong with that? That's just archaic to say those type of things. We have a policy at the organization that I lead called Lifeway, and we essentially in our policy have the Billy Graham rule in effect. And I recently got a request through my executive vice president, Brad Wagner, from someone just asking, can we make an exception to this? The man was asking for it, and I appreciate him asking. He said one of his coworkers, a female, all they wanted to do was take one car to the airport from Lifeway, which was about a 10 to 12 minute drive. Can we make that exception? I said, no. I said, the 12-minute drive can be an exception that can become the 20-minute drive. Well, you get the impression. You make one exception and you just open the door for other exceptions. And though I may sound legalistic and a bit overbearing, I said no. The Billy Graham rule for pastors, if many pastors, not to mention just others, just people in general, would follow this rule, some of these things that are coming back to haunt and ruin lives that, quite frankly, should have been dealt with many years ago, can be prevented if you follow the Billy Graham rule. So, what is the Billy Graham rule? Point number one, understand the dangers of being alone with the opposite gender. Just understand the dangers of it. Now, let me say this. Let's say a man and a woman are alone, and whatever the situation may be, in travel or something like that. It could be that nothing takes place, absolutely nothing. There could be no hint of impropriety except for the fact that you are alone. But what happens? Someone sees you alone with them and draws conclusions. You say, well, that's their problem. No, the Bible teaches us to avoid the appearance of all evil, not just to avoid evil. And so that means that we should not put ourselves in any position not only where we may have temptations or we may be putting someone else in a compromising position, but also where others could perceive it that way. Number two, and again, anytime I say this, I get pushback that it's archaic, and many times I will even hear from females that it's unfair to females but because they're often put at disadvantage because they cannot travel with men like men can travel with men, and likewise. But here is the statement that I'll make unequivocally for number two. Never travel together alone, opposite gender, obviously not married to each other. Never travel alone together. The temptations are great. The situation lends itself to all kinds of impropriety, and there is, again, the appearance of evil. I can think of one situation where I saw a couple get out of a car that worked for me, I was in another city, and I saw them get out of the car. And the first thing that I thought is, why are they riding together? And they had actually only traveled 2 blocks. And they thought, well, there's nothing wrong with that. But here I am, obviously, as CEO, I have a perspective, but I'm watching them, and I'm saying, why are they doing that? And my mind began to wonder, and probably wander to places that it should not have. I presumed some things maybe I should not have, but they put themselves in the position. Obviously, I dealt with it. So I just simply have this ironclad rule: never travel together alone. Number 3, be very cautious when counseling the opposite gender. Many pastors, and more of the time I'm talking about male pastors counseling females, many times the pastors have gotten themselves in trouble. What is going on there? Obviously, the counselee is in a vulnerable position. And assuming that it's a female, she has some types of issue, and transference can take place, and they can see the pastor as the hero, the one that, he's got his act together. That lends itself to all kinds of possibilities. We could talk for a long time on the issue of counseling. One thing I have learned about myself from many, many years ago, I don't counsel well. I am a poor counselor. Maybe it has something to do with my methodology. What's the problem? I agree. Let's pray. I don't show a whole lot of empathy when I counsel. I tend to be task-oriented, and so I'm not focused on the person. But not only that, I'm not trained in counseling. I was about to give his name, but I'm going to hold off on doing this. There's this man that I just, is a Christian counselor in the area, that I just totally admire. And a pastor contacted me and said, family talked to me about maybe some sexual abuse that could have taken place with their child, and he just simply wanted to know, should he report it? Well, I said, call this man. And he did, and he said, oh, absolutely. Even though the parents were not sure that he was sexually abused, he said, report it immediately. Well, it's those type of people that I love to refer counselings to. More and more we need to understand that counseling in the days that we live in the days of legalities and sexual abuse and all kinds of issues, counseling more times than not needs someone that is trained well. So be very careful when counseling the opposite gender, and do not get into a midterm or long-term counseling relationship. 4th, build in a system of accountability. Let me just give you a very practical one. When I first came to the executive suite of Lifeway, some of the offices did not have windows. And we had more and more female executives. And they either had to keep the door open where the conversation would be maybe heard by a passerby. But I said, let's don't worry about that. Let's get windows in all the doors. It's a relatively inexpensive fix. And so that's just one way to engender accountability, to be seen. Not so much is going to happen when you can be visibly seen. It may be accountability where you're actually talking to someone on a regular basis. I know some pastors and other leaders that actually say, check my texts, check my messages to their spouse, because they want to be totally accountable. Build in systems of accountability so that these issues cannot happen to you. Okay. The criticism that I've gotten when I've talked about these is it's legalistic, it's unfair. But that brings me to my 5th point. It's better to be overcautious than regretful. I cannot tell you how many pastors who have had moral failures, usually sexual moral failures, have said, I wish I had been smart. If I had been smart and had some type of system of accountability, I doubt that this would have happened. There may be a lot more issues to it than that just one issue, but that alone can be huge. We're talking about marriages. We're talking about families. We're talking about churches. We're talking about organizations. Let's not be stupid and worrying that we're being a little overcautious and maybe crossing the line to err on the side of caution. Let's be smart. We're living in a day and age where this is coming forward, and that is good. Don't be that person who thinks it can never happen to me. Usually that is the person that ends up regretting the decision that he or she made. Okay, the Billy Graham rule. The Billy Graham rule, really wise. Recently went to the funeral of Billy Graham, and one of the statements that was made again and again, he was a man of integrity. He was a man of character. This is one of the reasons why. Thank you, as always, to Costco, the design build firm. Let me tell you, if you have a building need for your church, whether you want to build it from scratch or you want to add a building or do remodeling or refurbishing, he's the best. Two of my sons are currently using him. That should make a statement for their building needs at their churches where they pastor. Tim Songster is the president and CEO of Costco. You can reach Costco at churchdesign.com. That's churchdesign.com. Thank you, Tim, for always being a great sponsor. Thank you, audience, for listening and maybe heeding the wise advice of a man who's now gone to be with the Lord, but who got it right all 99 years of his life. See you in a couple of weeks on the Rainer Report.